Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, coming at you live to talk about episode 19 of the anime series Rage of Bahamut Virgin Soul. And this was just a beautiful, bittersweet, heartbreaking episode for the part of Nina. And I was, right there at the beginning, I'm thinking she's going along with this plan. She's going to be a part of this infiltration plan of this big gala ball. And I knew her involvement meant things were not going to align the way they hoped. Things were going to go wrong. But I was pleasantly surprised that it got really beautiful and romantic, even before the fallout ensued. And it was like, because I'm a Disney movie fan, the one thing that I kept thinking was like, this is just like Beauty and the Beast, only there's a whole crowd of people watching Cherios and Nina dancing together, her being the one presumptuously to walk up and extend her hand and ask him to dance, whereas everyone else, all the aristocrats are like, all the women and everything, the well-to-do ladies, they have to bow to the king's whims and everything like that. Forget that. She already has a history with Cherios. She's going to walk right up predominantly and she's going to be like, dude, let's go. Across the dance floor once or twice with you. And it was beautiful. I loved it. I loved all of the animation. There were a couple of shots that were CG that stood out to me like, I don't know. But for the most part, I was really invested in what was going on, and I didn't really care if, I noticed a little bit of contrast in animation styles or anything like that. And it's not something I usually have that big of an issue with unless it's really stark. And so it was melting my heart, really. I mean, I've kind of come almost 180 degrees around of the pairing between Nina and Cherios, as far as I didn't want her to have anything to do with him because I found him despicable. I hated him for a while. And the more she has gotten close to him, I felt, well, now we're seeing sort of that barrier, those walls being broken down, whittled away at, and maybe there's actually hope for him. And by the end of this episode, there's two ways to take his shooting her down, telling her no longer can we see each other ever again. We're never going to dance like this again. I'm never gonna dance again. Like, there's two ways to really interpret that. On the one hand, he has completely been sort of be filled with this consuming, all-powerful plan of his, as sparked, I guess you could say, arguably, by the Onyx Knights and everything like that. Their renewed vows to his mission and everything, and what he has sought to do to wreak havoc with the heavenly realm, the gods and goddesses, as he has already done with demon kind and everything. And just having that plan renewed within him, having that resolve reinflamed, and really that Onyx Knight making that vow being the thing that fanned that flame. And so he is kind of, the other leg is finally dropped in a sense that he's going to double down on it. He's going to stick through and see it through. The other interpretation that kind of occurred to me was he's trying to protect Nina. Now, arguably, he sicks the Onyx Knights on her, but we don't actually see him make that call. It could be the Onyx Knights are watching. We've seen previously that they've been watching him closely, and when they had that romantic flight through the air that everyone's talking about at the start of the episode, they already know that, in a sense, Cherios's will is starting to bend toward her. Maybe being a little more open toward her, and backing down from the destruction he had so wrought up until that point. So they're already cautious. They're already guardedly and guidedly watching him. And if they're aware of the fact that here is Nina, and this is the girl, this is the dragon girl that is dancing with him across the dance floor, keep an eye on them, and when they escape, jump on them, pounce, that kind of thing. And it could be that Cherios knows of the solemnity of his Onyx Knights, what they would do, how far they would go. And maybe that doesn't fall in line now with his wishes anymore. Maybe he actually is, very much concerned for Nina's well-being. And he's trying to break her heart, trying to turn her off to him so that she will no longer put herself in danger, trying to come to his aid or trying to appeal to him, getting right in the line of sight of those Onyx Knights. And so, in that estimation, it's like, again, I've completely 180 degree turned away from my disdain for Cherios, And I kind of like the guy, even though he is still begrudgingly going through with this destructive plan that will see to the ends of millions of lives or hundreds of thousands of lives, as well as gods and goddesses and things like that. I mean, I've spoken before that I'm not in support of war in our real world or in fictional ones. It's always stupid, and there are too many souls that suffer for it or are lost, you know. And so I really don't know. It's really open to interpretation, I think, what Chedios' motivations are in telling Nina to go away and trying to actively break her heart so that she won't come after him again. And I don't think that's actually going to prove to be successful. While she was very depressed about it, very understandably, she crushed under the weight of having been, for all intents and purposes, dumped, as she says. I don't believe, knowing Nina, knowing how she is, I don't believe this is the end for her. I believe she will still fight for Chedios to the bitter end. And she may even convince herself of the fact that, oh, maybe he was trying to protect me, if not given that idea by any of the surrounding characters. But I damn near laughed myself silly, by the way. When Rita is spying and she's like, okay, now how the hell did Nina start dancing with the king? And you have Bacchus spitting up all of his wine on Hamsa the duck and doing a spit take thoroughly. It just had me on the floor dying. And by the end, it's like I say, it was so bittersweet. I was so heartbroken for Nina. And I love Favreau, as if there could be any doubt that I have loved Favreau since season 1. But when he cold cocks that son of a bitch Chedios for breaking her heart, for hurting her, which he just told her, or rather just told him not to do, I was like, yeah, go Favreau, man. If something happened to my sister like that, my younger sister, I'd be the older brother who'd be in there like Favreau, like, clack, you know. And, so, man, it was a hell of an episode. Beautiful animation, beautiful storytelling, bittersweet and heartbreaking by the end. And I think that's something we can all relate to. We've all been there, whether it's, you know, whether we've even gotten as close with someone we had an interest in as Nina has. You know, relationships, sometimes they cannot even be brought about. You can't even get the ball rolling because the other person isn't necessarily interested, or they're already spoken for, something like that. Or in the case of Nina, you have the barest perception of, you think you know the person, and then you have this cruel reality, you know, sort of debuted to you, which, in spite of that, you still want to be with them. You still want to do something to try to change them, to bring about a more positive turn in their lives, and you might be let down, and you might be dumped, you know? I mean, relationships that do come to fruition sometimes end up breaking apart again, you know? And so for that, it was such a romantic and relatable scenario. And as a fan of these characters, as a fan of Nina, she endeared me from her first scene in the first episode of this series. I cry for her. I weep for her. I feel for her. Because not only have I been there, but it's just, it sucks so bad that she has such a positive influence on a character like Chedios. She can actually, you know, positively affect him and affect change within him. But she's been backhanded away. She's been slapped away. And now we're back to square one as far as all hell potentially breaking loose. And it's just, you know, I almost thought Favreau was going to get killed right then when he spoke up against Chedios, when he clocked him. I was really fearing the worst. And that's kind of the overall lingering feeling I now have from this point on, is, are any of our main characters gonna survive this? Are any of them going to potentially, you know, be ill-fated and come to a bitter end before this story is wrapped up, whether it be Jeanne d'Arc or, you know, Favreau, Kaiser, Nina, even Chedios himself? I mean, it would be all kinds of heartbreaking to see him maybe even sacrifice himself for the sake of saving and preserving the world, simply because Nina would be taken out in the fallout, and he can't have that. I don't know which way it's going to go, but that is why I'm so riveted and compelled by this series. I love the characterization, I love the humor, and the drama, and the heartfelt scenario that played out in this episode left me almost speechless. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this particular episode of Rage of Bahamut Virgin Soul, if you've seen it as well, if your heart was melting for Nina as mine was, if you were wowed and awestruck by that grand dance across the ballroom floor that, you know, played out between them, and what your speculations are for where this might go from this point on. So yeah, otherwise it'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.